The night air in East Heights was heavy, thick with sirens and flickering street lamps that lit the cracked sidewalks like dying promises. Trash skittered between boarded storefronts, and graffiti shouted louder than the city officials who had long since stopped looking out for this block. Officer Kyle Mercer sat behind the wheel of his squad car, jaw tight, fingers tapping the steering wheel. 28, white, ambitious, he believed arrests meant points and points meant promotions. His field training officer's words still echoed, "Don't just patrol, control." He took that to heart. Scanning the shadows, he spotted her. A lone woman standing under a busted streetlight. Jeans, boots, leather jacket. Black, maybe mid-30s, posture confident, eyes sharp and aware. She wasn't dressed like the women who usually worked this corner, but Kyle didn't care. Lincoln and Fifth was a notorious crossroad of drug deals, gun drops, and disappearances. Kyle parked, ignoring his buzzing radio, and approached. "Evening, ma'am," he said, hand on his belt. "Can I ask what you're doing out here?" "I'm working," she replied coolly. "Working this block? Save it. Got ID?" Before she could answer, he stepped closer, towering over her. He'd seen enough. The glance over her shoulder, the stiff posture, the location. She fit the pattern. "Turn around," he ordered. "Hands behind your back." "What?" "You're under arrest for loitering and suspected solicitation." Her jaw tightened, but she complied. As the cuffs clicked around her wrists, adrenaline surged through him. Another collar. Another score. "You don't know who I am," she said quietly. "Sure I do," he muttered. Another statistic waiting to happen. She didn't argue. Calm, quiet. She watched the city slide by from the back seat of his cruiser. At the precinct, Kyle walked her inside and handed her off to booking. "Name?" the desk officer asked. She held Kyle's gaze for a beat before answering. "Detective First Grade Nina Harrington. Badge number 47261. Internal Investigations, Major Crimes Task Force. And I want to speak to your captain." The room froze. Kyle blinked. "Detective?" Within seconds, her profile appeared on the terminal. 13 years in NYPD, commendations, undercover, active. Kyle's chest tightened. "That can't be right," he whispered. Captain Doyle arrived moments later, black, mid-50s, weathered and sharp-eyed. "What the hell happened?" Kyle stumbled through excuses, each word worse than the last. Doyle's voice thundered. "She's been embedded for 2 months, gathering intel on a trafficking ring. You just blew her cover. Do you know how dangerous that is?" "I didn't know." "You didn't ask." Nina cut in, calm, resigned, like she'd seen it too many times before. The cuffs came off, but the damage was done. Kyle's certainty, his pride, his control, all of it sank under the weight of shame. "This," Nina said, rubbing her wrists, "is exactly what I'm investigating. Officers making snap judgments based on skin, neighborhood, posture. You're supposed to protect this city, not profile it." Nobody spoke. Not even the radios dared interrupt. Then she turned to Doyle. "I need to get back to the field. My target circles this corner every Thursday night. I may have just bought suspicion or trust. Either way, I'm not done." She walked out free, furious, and focused. Kyle sat frozen. He hadn't just made a bad call, he'd failed the badge. Her words echoed in his head like a hammer. "You're supposed to protect this city, not profile it." The hospital lights were too bright. Not because of their glow, but because they revealed too much. Every bruise, every swollen line etched across Detective Nina Harrington's face as she lay in bed, propped up in room 6C. Her wrists still bore marks from the restraints, and a purple bruise spread across her collarbone where the crowbar had landed. But her eyes, sharp, steel-hard, remained unbroken. Kyle Mercer sat beside her. Not in uniform, not in control, just present. He hadn't said much since they'd arrived. Paramedics had patched her up, DR had stitched her lip, and Captain Doyle had taken her statement before storming off with the promise. "We'll get Finch one way or another." Now silence hung between them, fragile, loaded. "I thought I was going to die in there," Nina said finally, voice ragged. They were moving me across state lines tonight. Off the grid. Kyle looked at his hands, shame burning hot under his skin. I saw it happening, she continued, and all I could think was how none of it would have happened if I'd stayed in the car, or lied about my name when you arrested me, or if I hadn't trusted anyone. Kyle raised his eyes. You trusted me? No, her voice sharpened. I left a breadcrumb for the job, not for you. You just had the decency to follow it, after you realized what you'd done. The truth stung. She didn't know him, Grace. She didn't know him anything. And yet she was speaking to him, raw and unfiltered, giving him clarity no superior ever had. I was trained for what happened, she said, shifting painfully on the bed. But nothing prepared me for being mistaken for a criminal by the same people I bleed for. Kyle swallowed hard. I was wrong. Yes, she said simply. But it's not just about you. It's about every cop who sees someone like me and thinks, streetwalker, mule, threat, anything but law enforcement. I've gone undercover with drug lords and traffickers. I've worn wires under my skin and steel in my spine. But nothing humiliated me like being cuffed by a brother in blue, on my block, while I was trying to keep it safe. His throat tightened. I want to be better. Wanting isn't enough, she said, leaning back with a grimace. It has to cost you something. Before he could respond, Doyle entered, his face set in stone. We found Finch, he said. Nina's eyes snapped open. Sort of. He was tipped before we got there. Place was cleaned out, laptops gone, phones wiped. But we found ledgers, burner IDs, and memos tying him to at least 4 dirty officers. Internal affairs is moving fast. But so is he. Nina exhaled slowly. He won't get far. He's not that smart. Doyle smirked darkly. Smart enough to know he's at war now. Kyle leaned forward. What do? We go public, Doyle said firmly. Nina gives her story. We expose what Finch started and we clean house. And Kyle, his eyes locked hard onto Mercer. You're going to help me? Kyle stammered. Yes, you made a catastrophic mistake, but you also gave us Finch's thread. Now you're going to sit with the people we ignore, review arrest reports, and flag patterns of profiling. You'll be the bridge, whether you like it or not. Kyle's face went pale. You're making me the face of reform.
No, Doyle replied.
I'm making you the test. Let's see if you can carry the weight. Nina chuckled bitterly. Congratulations. You've officially been baptized in fire. Kyle swallowed, nodding. I'll do it. You'd better, Doyle said, leaving the room. The silence returned. Nina closed her eyes, exhausted. I don't hate you, Kyle, she whispered. He blinked. I've seen worse men. I've seen better. You're somewhere in the middle, still figuring it out. Just don't mistake guilt for growth. If you want to change, prove it. Kyle nodded slowly. I will. Outside, dawn broke over the city. Inside, under sterile light, a reckoning had begun. The first time Kyle Mercer walked into the Internal Oversight Division, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. It wasn't the air conditioning, it was the looks. Cold, sharp, surgical. Every officer who passed him didn't need words. Their eyes said it all. Betrayer. Snitch. Weak link. This wasn't the redemption he imagined. He thought admitting his mistake, exposing Finch, helping Nina would earn him some measure of respect. Instead, he'd been branded, not by the public, not even by Nina, but by the brothers and sisters he'd once sworn loyalty to. The office itself was plain. Metal desks, dusty reports, half-dead computers. A bulletin board in the corner held clippings about community trust and transparency, but no one was reading them. This was the department no one wanted to exist. A reminder that the force had cracks, some too deep to ignore. On day 1, Kyle was handed a box of body cam footage and a stack of complaint files. Some dated months back, others years. Most were closed without discipline. His job was to sift through them, hunt for patterns of bias, flag repeat offenders, and worst of all, sit down with community members who'd been dismissed. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't exciting, but it was real. That afternoon, his first community liaison session unfolded in a rec center gym in East Heights, the same neighborhood where he'd cuffed Nina.
No guns, no cuffs, no patro chater.
Just plastic chairs in a circle, styrofoam cups of bitter coffee, and the wary eyes of people who knew exactly who he was. The first to speak was a grandmother named Ms. Geneva. Her voice trembled, but not from fear. She clutched a photo of her grandson, a teenager in a hoodie, smile wide. "He's been stopped 3 times this month," she said. "Walking home. Never did anything wrong. They made him sit on the curb like a dog. Never found anything. Now he walks like he's guilty of something. He's 15. Kyle listened, his chest tight. Then a younger man, Malik, leaned forward, anger flashing. "You never see us as sons or students. We're suspects before we even say hello. I'm sick of it." A woman added quietly, "Your badge doesn't scare me. Your silence does." Kyle wanted to explain, wanted to defend himself. But for the first time, he understood the power of not speaking. So he listened. He wrote everything down, not as paperwork, not to shield himself, but to remember. Because these weren't just complaints. They were wounds, generational wounds. When the session ended, he stepped outside into the dusk, heart heavy, head full. He thought of Nina. She had been released from the hospital 2 days earlier. Refused medical leave. Bruises still fresh, jaw stiff, but she went straight back to the task force.
No flowers. No apologies.
Just the hunt for Finch. That night, alone in a surveillance van, she scrubbed through traffic cam feeds, eyes burning from exhaustion. A text from Doyle buzzed across her screen. "Update?" she replied. "Nothing yet. Streets still don't trust Kyle." She sighed, staring at the glowing laptop. Truth was, she didn't know what to do with Kyle Mercer. He was guilty, no question. But unlike others, he hadn't doubled down. He hadn't hidden. He owned it. And now, he was forcing himself to sit in rooms most cops would never enter. Still, trust was currency. And Kyle hadn't earned nearly enough. Then her eyes froze on the screen. A car. Black Lexus. Same plates from the warehouse where she'd been held. Timestamp. 2 hours ago. Location. Outside a supposedly vacant print shop on Westfield. Her pulse spiked. She grabbed her vest, holstered her weapon, and texted Doyle. "Hit on Finch. Possible front at Westfield Print. Going in now." She didn't wait for a reply. She stepped into the night. Meanwhile, back at the precinct, Kyle was still combing records when a complaint leapt out at him. Filed 3 months ago by a 17-year-old boy, claiming Lieutenant Ronald Finch had threatened to plant drugs during a late-night stop. Closed. No action. Kyle leaned back, cold realization flooding him. Finch had been doing this for years, abusing power, silencing voices, shielded by the system. Not anymore. His phone buzzed. A message from Doyle. Nina followed a lead. "Westfield Print Shop. Get there now." Kyle grabbed his coat and sprinted for the lot, his mind racing. He didn't know what he'd find, but he knew one thing. If Nina was walking into a trap, he wouldn't make the same mistake twice. Not again. The print shop looked abandoned. Dust on the windows, paper curled on the sills, a flickering neon sign that hadn't glowed in years. But the alley smelled of exhaust and cigarette smoke. Fresh. A black Lexus idled half a block away. Nina moved quietly, her Glock low, eyes sweeping. The bruise on her shoulder throbbed with every breath, but adrenaline sharpened her. She had tracked Finch long enough to know he liked shadows. He liked control. Inside, the shop was dark except for a faint glow at the back.
Printer skotted, tables bare.
And voices. "Shipment leaves tonight," Finch was saying, his tone oily, commanding. "Once it's across state lines, no one can touch us." Nina crouched behind a counter, heart steady. She could almost see his smug face. Another voice spoke. "What about the Harrington problem?" Finch scoffed. "She's finished. Mercer humiliated her, and now she's radioactive. Nobody trusts her. Not the brass. Not the streets. She's done. Exactly as planned." Nina's jaw clenched. Rage rose like fire in her veins, but she forced herself still. Information mattered more than anger. Then her phone buzzed, one sharp vibration. She froze. Too late. Who's there? Finch snapped. Chairs scraped. Boots scuffed. Nina bolted, sprinting deeper into the shop as shouts erupted. Gunfire cracked, splinters flying from the walls. She dove behind a heavy press, returning fire, heart pounding. Out front, Kyle's squad car screeched to a halt. He burst inside, weapon drawn.
Nina!
Back here, she shouted. He ducked as plasma from an illegal blaster scorched the ceiling. Finch's men moved with military precision, ex-cops maybe or worse. Kyle returned fire, barely missing one as Nina flanked from the side. Together they pushed forward. Then Finch himself stepped from the shadows. Tall, broad, his badge long gone but arrogance intact. Well, he sneered. The rookie and the righteous. Didn't think you had the guts, Mercer. Kyle's grip tightened. You're done, Finch. Finch laughed. You don't get it. I own this city. Every dirty cop, every bought judge, every ghost case, they all lead back to me. You can't cut rot this deep. Maybe not, Nina said, eyes burning. But I can put you down. The fight was brutal. Close quarters, metal crashing, fists flying. Finch was stronger than he looked, fueled by rage and desperation. He slammed Kyle into a wall, drove his elbow into Nina's bruised ribs. Pain flared white-hot, but she refused to stay down. It ended when Kyle, blood on his lip, swung a steel pipe into Finch's side. Finch staggered, snarling, and Nina drove her knee into his chest, slamming him back across the table. Her weapon pressed to his forehead. Game's over, she hissed. For the first time, Finch's confidence faltered. Sirens wailed outside. Backup arrived. Finch's men scattered. He was dragged out in cuffs, spitting venom, swearing it wasn't over. Maybe it wasn't. But for tonight, the city had one less predator. Hours later, back at the precinct, Doyle clapped Nina on the shoulder. Hell of a job, both of you. Kyle, still catching his breath, nodded. Nina leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes steady. Don't thank me, she said. Just fix it. All of it. The system, the culture, the silence. Finch was a disease, but he wasn't the sickness. Doyle's expression hardened. We'll start, one case at a time. As the room cleared, Nina and Kyle found themselves alone. You saved my life, she admitted quietly. Kyle met her eyes. You gave me a reason to. She studied him for a long beat, then finally, let the corner of her mouth lift. Don't waste it, Mercer. You only get one chance to prove you're not like them. I won't, he said, and for the first time he believed it. They walked out together into the breaking dawn. The city still reeked of smoke and corruption, but for the first time in years, it also smelled like possibility.